Today's opening tip. Draymond's on-court instructions. He's very animated. Very.
Yeah, set the screen, young fella, please.
He's trying to get one guy out. He's trying to get him to get a pin down. Look, he's trying to get him to get out. So he has a pin down with Wiseman. Even Wiseman was late because he's looking at Draymond.
Who isn't looking at Draymond when he's jumping around like that?
Well, look, that's the job. That's why Steph has played so much better since Draymond came back. He's got another floor leader out there.
Welcome to The Jump. We, too, have many floor leaders here. I'm Rachel Nichols alongside 2016 NBA champ Richard Jefferson and 2008 Finals MVP Hall of Fame nominee Paul Pierce.
Ladies and gentlemen, come on.
Coming up, as Woj reports, KD will enter quarantine for the next week. How should the Nets approach the next 4 games without him? We'll discuss that. But first, so it is hard to win a professional NBA basketball game when you are down by 6 with under 25 seconds to go in regulation. Like, really hard. As in, before last night, 8,106 teams had tried it over the last decade. And of those 8,106 times, only twice had a team ever pulled it off. That's not what one would call statistically encouraging. Remember in Empire Strikes Back when C-3PO told Han Solo the probability of them getting through the asteroid field and Han said, "Never tell me the odds"? Yeah, even those odds were better than what the Pacers faced last night in New Orleans. Down 6 with under 25 on the clock. So it was an absolute mad experience watching what happened next. Victor Oladipo pulling up from nearly 30 feet. That shot as free and easy as a Sunday bucket at the park. The Pelicans appeared a bit stunned as the ball went in, but with just 20 seconds to go at that point and possession, New Orleans still should have been pretty comfortable, right? Leading by 3? Except then J.J. Redick, who has been on one end or another of hundreds of thousands of inbound passes over his 15-year career, was part of boofing this one. Both he and Lonzo Ball dissolving under the Pacers' press. And look, even then, you would think...
Where was Lonzo going? Where was Lonzo going? He started to dribble back into... No, Lonzo, no.
What's going on right here?
Right? And by the way, you'd think that Stan Van Gundy would have called a timeout at that point, which he could have. They would have advanced the ball to the other side of the court.
It. That's,
Right? Yeah. He didn't, though. Oladipo wrestled it away. Malcolm Brogdon, Miles Turner, bam, the ball game. Then came overtime. Another Oladipo steal here, right? Nice driving layups.
It takes everything to go wrong and everything to go right.
With another 3.
That's why
left open from the wing.
Didn't do it.
This is, of course, the version of Victor that so electrified Indiana when he first arrived there, but has been much harder to come by since he suffered that horrible leg injury over 23 months ago. Honestly, it's just been a weird past year for Victor overall. During his rehab, he tried his hand at reality TV, appearing on The Masked Singer and doing so well, he earned this whole new wave of fans. Then January and February were tougher. He returned to the court but struggled to find rhythm. Then came the shutdown, right? Then came the bubble, which Victor first said he was opting out of, then decided to opt back in for, but the
giấy hiên nhà lắng nghe tiếng mưa dù dịu dàng mùa hè sắp quay về với tôi.
thing was patchy enough, the extension he was once expected to sign this past offseason never materialized. Oh, and somewhere in there, the Indianapolis Star reported that Oladipo wanted out of Indiana entirely, to the point he'd been asking opposing players to trade for him when they were on the court together. Now, Oladipo has denied that story.
Well, players can't fulfill trade requests?
Now that he's set to be a free agent at the end of this
Not unless you're
season,
LeBron.
there's certainly a good chance the Pacers will indeed trade him before the deadline to avoid losing him for nothing a few months later. All of which leads back to last night and Oladipo keying one of the NBA's more statistically improbable comebacks. The Pelicans didn't make it easy, even in overtime. This Lonzo dunk with 25 seconds left tied the score at 116, but Malcolm Brogdon finishing things off, sealing it for Indiana with this floater. The win moved the Pacers' record to 5-2, good for a tie for second in the East. Still plenty of questions, though. Can the Pacers stay in the top half of the bracket in this shortened season? If they do, will Oladipo even be with them at the end of it? I could work out the probability of all that, but as a great man once said, never tell me the odds. A good policy in an asteroid field, and apparently also in this weird, crazy NBA season. So, Paul, Oladipo is extension eligible still. He's one of the few contracts in the NBA. There's all these different parameters, but he can still sign throughout the season right up until the end. So they could just extend him and keep him with him, or they could decide he's more valuable to have as trade bait and basically deal him before the deadline, get more back for him, and start with a fresh start with sort of that kind of group. What do you think is a better move for the Pacers right now?
Well, the problem is you have to figure out what the extension number is going to be, because a player like Oladipo, who's been an all-star, is probably asking for max dollars to stay in Indiana. And if I'm a GM or owner for Indiana, I'm not sure if I want to give that to him based on his injury-prone history. And I want to see if he can get back to that all-star level. So, I'm kind of stuck in the middle on what to do. Do I trade him, get younger picks? But if I'm Oladipo, I want to stay there and try to regain form, because this is where they love you. This is where you made a name for yourself. This is where you became an all-star. And so the grass is not always greener on the other side. So I think he needs to, weigh his options a little better, but really consider staying in Indiana, maybe at a lower price.
Yeah, and that's tough, though, because when you're talking smaller market, when you're talking about Indiana, to say that I want to take a pay cut to stay in Indiana, that becomes a little bit harder. I agree with you. They're invested in him. He was an all-star there. He'll have an opportunity to be an all-star. They want to invest in him. But he also wants to get paid like a person you're investing in. And look, the issue is when you have him, then you have Sabonis, and then you have Malcolm Brogdon, and you have Miles Turner. If you pay all your money to those guys, I think we know that the ceiling for those four as a collective unit is probably conference finals if they overachieve or play at their peak. So I can see them trying to negotiate a better deal with Victor Oladipo, because ultimately, if you give him max dollars, that's your team. That's it. And it's a smaller market, so it becomes a little bit more difficult to navigate around it.
One of the questions, too, is how needy is anybody at the trade deadline, right? Because the two names that you will probably hear the most requests for
Trong giấc mơ chỉ toàn người khóc, người vui, người điên. Trên áng mây cao là hoàng hôn, thổn thức tim tôi. Những ngày qua tôi ngồi lặng thinh, cùng mấy cuốn sách dở dang chưa đọc hết. Nhưng ký ức tôi ngỡ đã qua, mà đường giữa đám đông.
for who would be available. Well, James Harden is sort of on a different level, but the two names sort of, then you've got Bradley Beal, Victor Oladipo, and if teams feel like they're close, but not at a point where they could compete for a championship, but they feel it's important for this year, maybe someone's GM job is on the line, then, maybe the price goes up and someone will give you something great for him. So I think part of that is not really under the Pacers' control.
And to your point, those two players, but I would put Victor Oladipo closer to like a Drew Holiday type, right? Where he's a guy that can just kind of get you over the edge. Bradley Beal is a huge difference maker, right? The way he goes. So if you're trading for Bradley Beal, you're going to give up a lot, right? If you're trading for Victor, you might be able to finesse an opportunity where it's like a pick or like one or two young players. You might not have to give up much. So I think Victor's name is the one that a lot of teams are going to be pining for, just like Drew.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I mean, he's not as valuable as Bradley Beal. I mean, we've seen what Bradley Beal has been able to do over the last couple of years, emerging as an all-star, averaging 30 points a game this year. He's that player that can get a team over the hump, say like a Houston Rockets or whoever's at the top. I mean, like a Utah Jazz. I'm just throwing teams out there. Victor Oladipo is a question mark still. So, like, how much do you want to sacrifice to bring him in for an opportunity at a championship? It doesn't necessarily guarantee you a championship, but an opportunity. Some teams will take that. But it's not guaranteed.
Well, it's in Victor's best interest, obviously, to play as well as he can, up his own value, either for a contract or a trade to a contender, and did that last night. Wow, what a crazy, crazy end of that game. I want to switch over to what happened in the state of Texas. Luka and the Mavericks went into Houston and beat James Harden, John Wall, and the Rockets behind a 33-point triple-double from Doncic. Now, unfortunately for Houston, Boogie Cousins only got to see the floor for 3 minutes.
Kentucky buddies, right?
Yeah, Cousins picking up
friends
2
between
texts.
the lines, Paul.
Whew. Brief entanglement.
You had friends
Willie
between the
Cauley's
lines,
fine.
Paul.
If you went to Kansas and I went to Kansas, there's a mutual respect because we went to the same school. We're alumni. I mean, come on. Come on,
Kentucky has so
Boogie.
many guys in the NBA. I mean, if they
Yeah, and they were all
everyone,
at Kentucky for 8.5 minutes.
half of the game, referee
So it's like,
John
are you
Noble
really-
explaining his
Wait, you went to
reasoning for
Kentucky
the second
too?
technical, saying
my
Cousins
God.
gave, quote, an overt gesture directed at an official in resentment of a non-call. Richard, do you think Boogie's ejection was warranted based on his actions? Is this like Tim Duncan smiling or whatever?
No,
that got him
because
the
and
ejection?
look, I think everyone will understand that you get a little leeway when you're Boogie Cousins and you're a multi-time All-Star and you're averaging 25 points a game. Antics are allowed. We've seen it with other players. We don't need to go and say names like Draymond or need to say other names where like you've seen like antics allowed to a certain degree because you've earned that
Richard
right.
Jefferson.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
But when you have an individual that hasn't played in 2 years and is now coming off the bench, the same antics that were allowed 2 years ago when you're an all-star are not allowed right now. I don't think that he would have been thrown out of the game if it was 2 years ago and he was 25 points a game.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it means more when you get 25 a game.
Yes.
So I mean,
Okay, but Boogie's
got
been being
this.
thrown out of game.
Trong giấc mơ chỉ toàn người khóc, người vui, người điên. Trên áng mây cao là hoàng hôn, thổn thức tim tôi. Vẫn một góc phố đông chiều mưa, tôi nhìn quanh chỉ thấy xe cộ ngang treo. Không đợi nhau, không trông chờ nhau, không tìm nhau như trong
games for a while now.
Yeah,
I think 2 years ago.
He's in the same stratosphere as Rasheed Wallace.
Yeah.
I mean, you think old dogs are going to learn new tricks, but they're not. But you have to give him a longer rope because you already know he's going to be demonstrative. You know he's going to play with a lot of emotion. So he needs a little bit more rope than some of these other guys. Like Draymond, he needs a little more rope. You know he's going to do it. But is it worth throwing a guy out the game if it's really not that necessary? Yeah, you put a hand on somebody, okay. That's one tech. But a look or a stare down or a couple words.
But when you average in 25, Paul,
yeah, that's easy.
You get, yeah,
But
you know
flip it over to if you're someone who averages a lot of techs, right? You made the comparison to Sheed, right?
Yeah.
So if you are someone who has a history of technical fouls, like let's say Boogie does, are the officials a little bit trigger happy?
Let me tell you this. If I'm the coach and you out here getting double technicals in the game and you only giving me like 7 points a game, I'm hot.
I'm like, you just took away 2 points.
I'm like, now you're giving me, now that's 5 points that you ain't got me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Don't you think sometimes
I can take it from somebody.
quicker to whistle on someone who has a history?
No, yes, they are, but they're also allow more with a person. If you are an all-star and you are running off and saying these stuff, they give you, because they don't want to throw the all-star out of the game. They understand
there's different rules, Richard, for different players in this.
No, I'm not saying that. The NBA is saying that.
Richard wouldn't know about these things, the calls you get and all, you know, the leeway with not getting texts. He wouldn't know about that.
Yeah, look.
Every foul that he got, he earned it.
Everyone. But no, look, Boogie Cousins, again, this is like what we talked about players that have had to adjust over the course of their career.
Yes.
Understanding, you know, let's say like a Carmelo, let's say guys that as they careers have, you know, changed and adjusted, it takes that moment. Boogie Cousins, you're not going to get away with the same stuff you did when you were averaging 25 points a game and you're an all-star. You're not. Even if you've always done it, you're not going to get away with it as much.
I couldn't get a call.
No.
Couldn't get a call when I got
So you're different. With like Celtics, Wizards versus Clippers.
When I got to the Clippers, I couldn't get a call.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It happens. It's an adjustment.
And that may be the end of that discussion. Coming up, stick with us. A beautiful lob poster from Bam last night. We're going to look at the best alley-oop posters of all time. First, though, time for our discussion.